Objective evil exists. Today's stories prove that to be true. We see some disturbing protesters from the No Kings demonstrations this weekend. We will also be looking at the persecution happening in Nigeria, how we should pray, why it matters, as well as this very contentious race in Virginia. We will also be closing the episode analyzing Trump's latest moves when it comes to IVF. How should we be thinking about that as pro-life Christians? This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com. Use code Allie at checkout. That's goodranchers.com/Allie. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and that you are having a great start to your week. Remember, God's eternal plan of redemption is always going off without a hitch. He is not surprised. He is not taken aback. He is not thrown off by anything. He is never looking down and wondering what is going on. He is sovereign over all of it. And one day he is coming back and he will make every wrong right. And he will do away with all injustice and oppression and evildoers. And when it seems like evil is winning, we can always go back to Psalm 37 that tells us not to fret over the evildoer, even when it seems like he's prospering and succeeding, that Jesus is coming back, that Jesus wins, that Jesus is king. And so that is our hope. And we walk forward in that hope, in that joy, knowing that we are completely immortal until God calls us home. And we serve a God who is surprised by nothing. You are placed on this tiny speck of the universe, on this small spot of eternity, by a God who does nothing by accident. Your existence, your children's, and your children's children's existence, the time and the place in which they are put in history, all of that is done by a God who does everything with purpose and in intention and cares very much. So as we talk about some of the things that we're going to get into today, some of them sad and troubling and disturbing, we have to remember that this is our Father's world and that he's not doing nothing about evil. His wrath is kindling, and one day he will do away with all of it. So if today you feel any kind of prompting like, wow, who is this God? What is Christianity? What is this faith that she is talking about? Don't ignore it. Don't push that feeling down. I have lots of resources that I've talked about on this show and on my Instagram about how you can start reading the Bible and how to find a biblical church. That is your next step. All right, let's talk about some of these disturbing things that happened over the weekend. And that would be the No King's Day demonstrations. Now, you might have heard about No King's Day because they just had a whole day of demonstrations just a couple months ago in July, but they're already back. They're already having new demonstrations. I guess the demand for No King's Day was just so high that they felt, okay, we need more nationwide protests. And if you're wondering, No King's Day is orchestrated by a bunch of far left activist groups that say that they are protesting against Donald Trump's tyranny, against his dictatorship. Now, what exactly is he doing that is not in line with liberty, that is not in line with democratic ideals? It's unsure. It's yet to be seen. It seems that a big issue that they all have is that Donald Trump has the audacity to believe in borders and believe that America should just be for American citizens, that we should put the interest and the well-being and the safety of America before the interest and well-being and safety of other countries. The belief that literally everyone has had for all of time in every country, that is now seen as dictatorial in some way. So this happened on Saturday. First one was, I think I said July, it was actually on June 14th. According to the website, over 2,700 No King's Day protests took place, included over 7 million people. I have no idea how you count that, although I do believe that they were a lot of places. I saw it in the city where I live, in the suburbs, in places that you would consider to be pretty conservative. I mean, there were a lot of people out there demonstrating. So this is, of course, the party of empathy and peace. And so all of their demonstrations were peaceful, right? And they were very joyful and very unifying. And they were just out there trying to show us what it looks like to be good, compassionate Americans. Well, let me show you some pictures of some demonstrators. Here's full screen one. Here's some highlights. We've got this woman up here on the top corner there. And in the video, which I think we might even, we have a video, I think, of her. Do we have a video of her also? Okay, so we can see, and we can play that in a second, where she is, as people are filming her, she is pretending to be Charlie Kirk shot in the neck. So that's what she's doing there. Lovely person. She's also holding a Mexican flag, even though she's here in America. I don't think that she's a starving refugee. I'm just going to kind of like put that together. Doesn't seem that way. And then we've got this very disturbing thing. We've got this guy right here who is dressed up as the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination. So that's what he's wearing there. He's wearing the shirt that the suspect was wearing when he murdered Charlie Kirk, wearing the same kind of get up with the sunglasses and the hat. And then we've got another protester here. Which one heals faster? Trump's ear, Erica's heart. So I think what they're trying to say there is that they were both fake, that those things were set up, that they were some kind of political play. I mean, how cold-hearted can you be to minimize something like that? Not only Trump's attempted assassination, but the grief of a widow? I mean, you are so spiritually calloused and so cold. If you not only thought that, I can't even imagine having that impulse at all, even towards someone that I hated. But then to take the time to plan that out and to write it down and to hold it up as if you were proud of it. Like, you're looking at this, how can you doubt that evil exists? And if objective evil exists, then something else has to exist too. I truly believe God can use even this evil to point people towards himself, because that's what he does. But man, and then we have another guitar, "This machine kills fascists." That's a little mantra that we've been hearing over the years from progressives. And this is everywhere. We're not just picking out a few people. I'm going to play you some videos in a second of something extremely disturbing. And I'm not saying this represents every single protester out there. I'm not saying this is every single person in the Democratic Party or every single progressive out there, but it's obviously enough people that are pro-violence, that are pro-assassination, to make you second guess if your progressive ideas and your progressive ideology really do have good intentions. Like, you should probably start thinking about that. The party of love and peace and compassion. They're the ones that are pro-assassination of their political enemies. I don't know. Maybe you should just start second guessing whether the Christian nationalists are really the bad guys. Have a moment of self-reflection. Are you part of the bad team? Are you actually on the wrong side of history? I know that's tough. No one wants to ask themselves that question, but it's time. Okay, let me go ahead and pause and tell you a couple exciting things. Well, the first exciting thing is that if you missed Share the Arrows, my Christian Women's Conference, that was last weekend. It was amazing. We had almost 7,000 women there listening to sound biblical teaching, being encouraged, making godly friendships, and also worshiping together. And a lot of you wanted to make it, but you couldn't make it. But you can. If you subscribe to BlazeTV and you go to blazetv.com/Allie, you subscribe, you get to watch all of Share the Arrows, not only this year, but last year too. You can subscribe and you can bring a bunch of friends over and y'all can watch it together. That would be super fun. And you get access to all Blaze TV subscriber exclusive content. And when you use my code Allie, you get a $20 discount on that subscription. Totally worth it. I really encourage you to watch Share the Arrows. You will walk away from that feeling so encouraged. Okay, next thing that I want to talk to you about is 7 Weeks Coffee. That is America's pro-life coffee company. I love 7 Weeks. We drink 7 Weeks in our home. It is super high quality, clean, pesticide-free, mold-free, ethically sourced, all the good stuff, and it tastes really good. But the best part is they donate 10% of every sale to pregnancy centers across the country. And so that means that they have donated over $1 million to these pregnancy centers that are saving lives. So because you have chosen to allow your coffee to serve a higher purpose, they have been able to be generous and to save the lives of those tiny image bearers of God, to serve moms and dads, to make sure they know the gospel and that their material needs are met. Wow, you can be a part of that just by buying from 7 Weeks Coffee. Plus, you can subscribe. You'll get a box of coffee to your front door every month, and that saves you 15% rather. And then when you use my code Allie, you save an extra 10%. So lots of discounts, lots of good happening when you buy your coffee from 7 Weeks Coffee. Go to 7weekscoffee.com. Use code Allie at checkout. That's 7weekscoffee.com, code Allie. Okay, I'm just going to warn you, this is disturbing. I know that a lot of you watch Relatable, listen to Relatable with your kids, and just know that the content that we're about to play is disturbing, and maybe if they're mature enough, this can start some conversations that you can have, but I just want you to be able to make the best decision. But we have to be able to look evil in the eye and see what it really looks like and see, gosh, how much this world really needs Jesus. So here is that woman from earlier, the picture that you saw imitating Charlie Kirk being shot too.
Hey! You ever heard of Ozempic, you fat?
So there's a lot of reporting about who this woman is. Some people are saying that she is an elementary school teacher and a name is going around that apparently matches her. But the school that has kind of been like looped into this, that people are saying that's the school where she teaches. They've said, no, this is not our employee. And so because there seems to be some conflicting reports, I don't want to say the name that's floating around, because what if it's not right? And what if that school is being targeted and the name of that teacher is being used and it's not her at all? So I just don't want to accidentally do that. This particular lady, though, like, there is no mistaking what she was actually doing, and that is evil. And I just want to also be clear, like, I support her actual identity being revealed, and I do believe that she should lose her job. Yes, there should be social consequences to being evil. And as I've said before, that doesn't make me a radical. That doesn't even make me anti-free speech. It's not crazy for me to say, hey, if you are pro-assassination of your political enemies, I don't want you teaching kids. I don't want you talking as a therapist to someone in a vulnerable mental health crisis. I don't want you taking care of old people in the old folks home. Like, I don't want you to be the person giving anesthesia to the guy who's about to get surgery. Like, I don't think you should be in a position of taking care of vulnerable people, shaping their minds and like caring for their bodies. You shouldn't. Like, you should be as irrelevant to the human population as possible, without actually going to jail, because I don't want there to be legal consequences for, actual speech, but there should be social consequences. And of course, where actual threats and, incentivizing violence come in, there is a legal component to that. But there should be consequences for this kind of abject evil. Okay, then we have this old lady, and I have quite the commentary to say about this woman who, this is the kind of woman that you would walk, you might run into her in the grocery store. She would probably give her pleasantries and, be very nice. She looks normal. She might be someone's grandmother. And yet here she is saying that Charlie Kirk deserved to die because he was basically Hitler, saw one.
I have to ask this because people on the other side are going to say that they feel like the Democrat Party has been mean. Recently, with Charlie Kirk being assassinated,
Kirk is a piece of garbage. Of course we were mean. I am so tired of people saying, oh, but, it's a terrible thing. No, Hitler is dead. I'm glad Hitler's dead. Evil people have no place in my world. He was a hateful human being. It was disgusting, the things that he said and did. I don't have time for that. I'm sorry. I have to point my energy in other directions.
You are such a pointless person. You really are. You suck the energy and joy and purpose and goodness from every room you walk into, and you know it. And that is why you are seeking fulfillment from this pointless political protest, because you have probably actually been directing your energy into your profession, into plants, into politics your entire life rather than into people, which is why you are so incredibly miserable. Okay? Like I said, this could be someone's grandmother. Probably not. Probably not. And this is actually a consequence of like the childlessness epidemic that we have in society, that you have all of these just like listless people who don't know where to direct their energy. And so we've talked about this before, this phenomenon, especially among older white women, of misplaced mothering. And because they are not channeling their God-given mothering instincts into people, into their own children, into the next generation in some way, they're channeling it in directions that are not actually healthy. And so they believe that they are mothering the migrant, that they are mothering the criminal, that they are mothering the people who are on the margins of society. And so this makes them feel better. But it's actually a lazy way to demonstrate that you're a good person, which means you're not a good person at all. In the same way that socialism is like outsourcing your compassion to the government. Like this social justice is outsourcing your virtue to the government. And that's what's going on here. And just like a spoiler, if you are cheering on the assassination of someone that you disagreed with, this husband and father, this evangelist, you are the evil person. I just want you to know that, like, you are the evil person. And that, by the way, just a tip, when someone says something like that, oh, the evil that he said, the evil that he did, that's when you ask, like, what? Very simple question, 2 words. And this can get any discussion or debate really going, or it can shut it down. Like what? And just, you don't have to try to step in and help them because it'll be awkward. You don't have to alleviate the tension. You don't have to try to put words in their mouth when they start stammering and stuttering. You just be quiet. Like what? And when they can't tell you specifics, that actually, it's not really just about humiliating them. It is also about helping them. Because I can't tell you how often I have said like what, and that has actually planted a seed in that person's brain to start thinking about, wait, hang on. Why do I believe what I believe? Why did I say that? Wait, did I just repeat something that I've never really thought about before or that I couldn't verify? So those 2 words, like what, can help you think through why you believe what you believe, but also the person that you are opposing in that moment. Okay, here are some more examples of things that were going on at these No Kings protests over the weekend. SOT 3.
With a shirt that says for Charlie. Because I advocate for free speech, and I absolutely love
free speech. Wear a shirt that says free speech. Wear a shirt that says promote free debate. Free press.
Well, you get triggered because it has Charlie on there, right?
Because he was a racist. Because he was a misogynist, and that means that you are too. Because you support him. Get out. Get out of here!
He hated people. Yeah, just
he hated
anyone
that wasn't white, that wasn't male, that wasn't straight.
Charlie hated anyone that wasn't white, that wasn't male, that wasn't straight. Okay. Well, as someone who is not male, I can say that Charlie didn't hate me, didn't hate his wife, didn't hate his daughter. This person's wearing like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg shirt there. These people are just, you have to understand, I'm not saying this to be rude. These people in these videos are very, very unwell. That is true. But it's not just, I don't want it to say like mental health crisis, because I actually think that's just an excuse for evil, because evil really exists. And it's evil that can make you very stupid. Sin makes you stupid. And iniquity makes you insane. We can use those alliterations. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but very often that's the case. I don't want to let these people off the hook just because they're probably on, 3 different SSRIs. That doesn't excuse being a horrible person. There are plenty of people who do actually struggle with mental health issues that are not like this. So those 2 things really do go hand in hand in this case, and It's scary. It's very scary when you think about it. Okay, so a lot of these people are elderly, not the person we just saw in that video, but definitely older baby boomer generation. And I just want to know, like, what happened there? Stop for.
Justice! When do we want? Now!
If we don't get it, what do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now! No kings! USA where freedom reigns! No crowns! No kings!
Where are your grandkids? Where are your grandkids? Certainly there's a soccer game that you should be at right now. Or something. Like, what happened to elderly people playing bridge? My grandmother, God bless her soul, in her later years, she did a lot of Bible study. She did a lot of Roomy Cube. She loved to play bingo and go to the hair and the nail salon. She loved to visit with us. I mean, of course, if you are at an age where you can continue to work and you have that strength, I think that's great. But definitely your last years should not be at this kind of completely empty protest. I mean, if you can stand up for what is truly right, no matter what your age is, I think that's a good thing here. But this, something that doesn't make any sense, I don't think it's a good way to spend your time. Because truly, the No Kings protest by people who would love a king, who love tyranny, who actually love dictatorships. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, these are the very people who wanted to force kids to wear masks, who wanted you to be fired from your job if you didn't get an experimental vaccine. These are the very same people that support taking children out of their parents' homes if their parents don't affirm the stated gender identity of a person, who don't want Christians to be able to adopt in places like Oregon or Washington or Illinois because they won't affirm the potential gender identity of a future foster kid. I mean, these are not made up scenarios. These are stories that we have covered in specificity many times over the years. They supported Joe Biden directing the USDA to remove paid student lunches from poor schools that didn't abide by the rewrite of Title IX, which said you have to allow boys into girls' bathrooms or you don't get lunch for poor kids. That's something that actually happened under Joe Biden. Did any of these No Kings protesters have anything to say about that? COVID tyranny, medical tyranny, gender tyranny. Over and over again, we have seen Democrats support more government overreach, lurching closer to socialism. I mean, these very people who are demonstrating in places like New York City saying No Kings are about to elect Mamdani, who is an out-and-out socialist, who does not believe in personal freedoms, who does believe that the government should step in and curb our constitutional liberties for the sake of equality and equity. I mean, over and over again, we've seen this. They support the forced redistribution of wealth and capital to those who are either impoverished or those who have darker skin color than us in the name of equality. These are the people who say No Kings. Like, you know which side the Democrats would have been on in 1776. Like, you know it wouldn't have been on the side of the Republic. You know they would have been cheering on King George. And the funny thing is also you have a lot of these people like dressed up as founders. Okay, well, the founders also wrote the Second Amendment. Y'all completely disdain the Constitution except when you think that it is a way to manipulate the apolitical people who don't really know what's going on into opposing Donald Trump. Like, it's just crazy to think these are the people that people like David French and Russell Moore actually think are more right and more sophisticated and like more godly in a lot of ways than the conservatives who support Donald Trump. I mean, these people have been talking about like winsomeness and peace and constitutionality, but they have nothing to say about the abject evil on their own side. But they will like pick the most random people that they can find that are kind of associated with the right and be like, this is representative of conservatism and MAGA Christianity. I don't know. Maybe the motives aren't so pure there. And then we have another round of peaceful protesters. We've got as you can see there, pinata. We've got even kids, pinata of Trump, even kids hitting this pinata, teaching kids to hate their president and hate people, and that violence is an answer if they disagree with someone. That's great. Exciting. I'm glad that these are our future voters, future neighbors of our children. That's awesome. And then we also have these inflatable costumes. It's also just like very cringe and silly. Very cringe and silly. And then we have this lovely guy, SOT6.
Who are you gonna kill?
Nazis.
Who do you define as a Nazi?
What do you mean? It's pretty.
In this context, who's a Nazi?
Stephen Miller's a Nazi.
So you're gonna kill Stephen Miller?
If I had the chance, yeah, I would.
I don't know if that's something I'd say on camera, bro.
Okay, so that guy needs to be checked out by the authorities. He says that he would kill Stephen Miller if he had a chance. Stephen Miller has been so incredibly villainized by the left, and I just want to know, truly, like, what is his horrible crime? Is his horrible crime that he believes in deporting illegal aliens, especially violent ones? Is his horrible crime that we should have borders and that he believes in the sovereignty of our nation? Again, like 99% of human history has believed about nations. Like, what is it? Is that he's kind of like mean sometimes, or he says some things that are kind of like harsh? Like, what is it? Because I don't care about that. And I have been in interviews like baited into trying to criticize and like distance conservatism from Stephen Miller. And I'm just like I'm not falling for that. Like, why is he elevated as the worst guy ever just because he is 100% right on immigration policy? I just want to know. Like, I love people that hate evil. Like, I really support people that are angry about evil. And I'm not talking about every single illegal immigrant being a criminal gang member, but that is who he has his sights set on. And he also, and he's shared this, that he was texting with Charlie before Charlie died, like he is intent upon like breaking up these left-wing radical cells of domestic terrorists. And I support people who oppose evil. And Stephen Miller, to me, seems to be very opposed to evil. But of course, when you have people like this who are just so dead morally, like evil is good and good is evil to them. Like, you are the bad guy. You are the bad guy, dude. Very scary. There's an upside to this and a downside to this, like all of this stuff. The upside, well, let me start with the downside. The downside is that you are really literally risking your life when you hold and say common sense positions like our nation should have borders. So that's not good. But then the upside is that the normal person doesn't want to be associated with people like this. Normies watch something like this, and at the very best, it's extremely dorky. At the very worst, it is so violent and ugly and extreme that most people, even if they would be sympathetic to the progressive side, are like, well, I don't want to go there. And that has been a huge shift in the past few years. Like, this is, I hope Republicans have a strategy, even more of a strategy to get the suburban mom, because the average suburban mom looks at something like that and it's like, I don't want to sound like that. I don't want to look like that. And I don't want to smell like that. So most normie people are just naturally like repulsed by the movement represented by what we see here. And so there has to be a better alternative. However, really, it's just going to be, I think, leaning to the right by default. So downside and upside to all of this. All right, just a little bit more about the background and who is funding these ridiculous activist groups in just a second before we get to our next topic. But let me go ahead and tell you about our next sponsor for the day. It's Adele Natural Cosmetics. You guys know I've been talking about Adele for a long time. Maybe you got to meet Arlene and her family at Share the Arrows. Gosh, I love them because I love their values. They are completely unapologetic about being Christian, about being pro-life. They conduct their business in a way company that honors God in how they make their products and how they market their products. Every single product from Adele Natural Cosmetics is made with completely holistic, natural ingredients. They don't have any synthetic fragrances or any bad ingredients that you have to worry about irritating your skin or being toxic for your skin. It's all natural. Also, it really works. I use their essential cleanser every day. I love their essential moisturizing spray. You can use it not only on your face, you can use it as room spray. It just smells good. It's so good. It's got essential oils in it, but really all of their products are amazing, including their makeup. And it's just another way to support an unapologetically a pro-life and Christian business. Go to AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com. Use code Allie. You'll get 25% off your first time purchase. AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com, code Allie. According to Blaze Media, left-wing billionaire George Soros has been funding foundations that financially support the No Kings protest against Donald Trump. That should be no surprise. Every left-wing activist group basically is funded by the Open Society, which is George Soros's foundation. Fox News says that Soros's Open Society Action Fund gave a $3 million grant to an organization named Indivisible. Indivisible. So ironic, like every progressive euphemism, it actually means the opposite of what they say. They're extremely divisive, and they are behind many of these No Kings protests. The website for the Open Society Foundation described the 2-year grant as supporting the group's social welfare activities. Again, another euphemism. They are not for the welfare, the well-being of society. The Fox News report found that Open Society Foundations had granted more than $7.61 million to another organization that's also part of orchestrating the protests. It is also worth pointing out that the protesters are marching against Donald Trump, who has only served for 4 years and 9 months, but the Democrat politicians that they support unwaveringly have been serving for a very long time. Chuck Schumer, 45 years in Congress. Nancy Pelosi, 42 years. Longer than we've been alive. My goodness. Elizabeth Warren, 15 years in Congress. Bernie Sanders, 34 years in Congress. Dick Durbin, 43 years in Congress. I feel like Elizabeth Warren has been in Congress a lot longer than 15 years. Anyway, and so these people who have been grabbing for power, who oppose the Constitution, especially when it comes to religious liberty, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment. These people aren't being protested against, but the guy who supports your Second Amendment rights, who supports your free speech rights, who has been a champion for religious liberty, who is allowing you to demonstrate and protest and criticize and joke about killing him and assaulting him, that guy is the dictator. That guy is the source of all of our problems. Like, just an FYI, kings don't allow you to protest against them. Tyrannical kings don't allow you to criticize them. Tyrannical kings don't allow you to organize billion-dollar demonstrations against their rule. Okay? Tyrannical kings don't allow you to keep and bear arms. They don't allow free speech. They don't allow your individual rights. They don't allow states' rights. Like, that's not what's going on here. What's going on is that we finally have a president who actually cares about our country, cares about our borders, cares about our sovereignty, and cares about basic safety in once great American cities. That's the crime that he is committing here. It's just insane. Speaker Mike Johnson highlighted the ridiculousness of No King's Day. He said this, SOT 7.
I was a First Amendment lawyer for 20 years. We defend that right. But the irony of the message is pretty clear for everyone. If President Trump was a king, the government would be open right now. If President Trump was a king, they would not have been able to engage in that free speech exercise out on the mall, by the way, which was open because President Trump hasn't closed it. In the last shutdown, 2013 era, President Obama closed the National Mall. It closed all the national parks, didn't allow people to engage in all this. So, I mean, they needed a stunt. They needed a show. Chuck Schumer needs cover right now. He's closed the government down because he needs political cover, and this was a part of it.
Yep, it is absolutely absurd, and I'm sad that people have been caught up in this ridiculous propaganda and rhetoric. This is like soul-stealing stuff, like soul-sucking stuff. You know, when people go down the blue anon rabbit hole, I mean, they really just become obsessive. And I know it can feel hard to talk to them, especially the people in your life. But remember, your job is just to plant a seed. Plant a seed, love them, plant a seed, love them. Your job isn't to win every debate or to win every argument. So do the best that you can. And a lot of you are still, you might be here for the first time because of the Jubilee debate that you watched a couple weeks ago. And let me tell you, it is possible to try to be persuasive and to be winsome and to be kind and to be respectful and still not concede and not compromise, to stand your ground and to make your point. And you've heard a lot of people for a long time, especially the David Frenches and the Russell Moores of the world, tell you that in order to evangelize and in order to win people over, you can't be a conservative. You can't like Donald Trump. You certainly can't be like a voting Republican. And you're going to have to quietly compromise on some issues to win people over from the world. Well, Charlie Kirk proved that that wasn't true. But I hope that if you get something from the Jubilee debate, it's that you can have compassion without compromise and you can connect without conceding, and that you don't actually have to betray your values when it comes to culture and politics to evangelize to a dying world. You can hold both of those things at the same time as long as you know how to defend your beliefs. Let me take a quick pause and tell you about our next sponsor, and that is Fellowship Home Loans. You might have heard that there's a standoff right now between the Trump camp and the Federal Reserve. Trump is pushing hard to bring interest rates down, get the economy moving, but Jerome Powell is standing firm for now because inflation is still hanging around. But what you need to know is that rates could drop at any moment. When they do, the prepared people will move fast. That is why right now is the time to talk to my friends at Fellowship Home Loans. Mike and Brian and their team will help you run the numbers to look at the full picture and ask this honest question: what is it going to take to get into the home that your family needs right now? Because even if rates aren't ideal today, if the right home is in front of you, you don't want to miss it. There's a saying, marry the home, date the rate. You can always refinance later. Talk to them. They do business not just by the book, but by the book, by the Bible. They honor integrity and will align with your values, which is so important when you're making a big decision like this. Get a free consultation at fellowshiphomeloans.com/Allie. You'll even get a $500 credit at closing. Terms apply. See site for details. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book, nationwide mortgage bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, equal housing lender, NMLS number 819382. All right, speaking of defending our beliefs, we need to go to the other side of the world, to Nigeria, where there's a very different kind of persecution that is going on there for the Christians. And as happens in many countries, but especially in Africa, the radical Islamists target Christians in particular. They target churches, they target worship gatherings, and they slaughter men, women, and children, enslave them, try to get them to convert at gunpoint. And so while the craziness and the chaos is going on over here, let us not forget that we have Christians around the world, in Nigeria and elsewhere, actually being slaughtered for their faith. So Nigeria is one of the most dangerous countries for Christians. They face severe violence. The government totally denies it. They deny that it's religiously motivated. But videos, articles, statistics about attacks on Christians have gone viral, prompting global attention. And here we have a Nigerian pastor calling on President Trump for help. Side 8.
Look at it here on ground. Special advisor to Trump. Now, please tell Trump to save our life in Nigeria. He has been building to settle peace between Israel and also Hamas. Now, his attention, I'm calling attention to Nigeria. They are killing Christians in Nigeria. Massacre Christians. If they say they kill Muslims, Muslims are being killed. By who? By Muslims.
Wow. I mean, you could just tell how devastated he is. And if you're just listening to this, he is conducting a mass burial for 13 victims. And we covered up the bodies there. They were killed overnight on Tuesday, October 14th. And he's also like urging his neighbors to arm themselves, to defend themselves. And of course, it is President Trump's top priority to put the safety and security and well-being of Americans first, because he is the leader of America. And that is every government's righteous responsibility to put the well-being of their people first. And I think that we can and should be America first. And also, as Christians, have a vested interest in the persecuted body of Christ. And if there is a way for us to help, and if there is a way for us to stop this injustice while also prioritizing the needs and safety and well-being of Americans, then of course, I think that we as Christians should advocate that our government does do something, because my heart breaks. My heart breaks for these children and for these people who have been terrorized for so long. So here's what's going on. This is according to Open Doors. Over 7,000 Christians were killed in Nigeria in the first 7 months of 2025, according to Intersociety. Between 2009 and 2023, at least 52,000 Christians killed, 18,500 abducted, most of them probably dead, over 20,000 churches and Christian schools attacked. From October 2022 to September 2023, 82% of Christians killed globally died in Nigeria. My goodness, think about that. According to Open Doors, a U.S. group tracking persecution, Christians are 6.5 times more likely to be killed and 5.1 times more likely to be abducted than Muslims in northern Nigeria. Of course, if you need to know just the innate ideological violent problems with Islam, you need to go back and you need to watch or listen to Friday's episode. Okay, this is not just like, oh yeah, wow, this is just an aberration, this is just an exception. While this doesn't happen everywhere, there's actually an ideological reason why it happens in some places and not others. And it's not because it's possible to have like a modern form of Islam. It is there innately in its books. Kidnapping is a major issue. It actually helps empower Islam. Over 20,000 abductions from 2019 to 2023. They target Christians because there are higher ransoms that they can put on the head of a Christian. And they know that these Christian organizations will work to try to free these victims. And so this actually helps fund, it's such a double-edged sword, it helps fund the Islamic regime there. Survivors report brutal treatment by Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa, including torture and pressure to convert to Islam. Radical Islamist violence is spreading beyond Nigeria to countries like Sudan, the Congo, Mozambique. Nigeria's population of 242 million is split between Muslims and Christians. And so that just tells you so much about the difference between Islam and Christianity. There are a ton of Christians in Nigeria. It's not that they're this tiny population, but then you have an ideology that is motivated by violence and power, and motivated by invasion, and motivated by forced conversion. And then you have an ideology that is motivated by love and peace and evangelism and making the world around them better. And obviously, right now, those are the people being targeted. And that's how it always is. That's how it always is. Even the Crusades, the history that we hear now about the Crusades, that Christians were just randomly attacking Muslims and did all of these terrible things, that's not even true. That was even defense and pushing back against darkness. And so it just shows you the dichotomy, the good versus evil going on here. And the fact that we've reached this morally relativistic place that tells us that Islam is this religion of peace and that we should just invite them into the West to basically colonize American cities. It's just literally insane. It's so wrong. And it is so unloving to our neighbors to believe that and to allow that. It's evil immigration policy that has allowed that over the past 20 years. I saw a horrible video of a woman who she was telling the story, and her two children were slaughtered in front of her, 3 years old, 10 months old, and her husband. She was kidnapped along with another family member, but she was punished by her hand being chopped off. And you could see, like in the video, that she just had like a nub of an arm because these Islamic groups kidnapped her and tortured her. There has been some U.S. involvement. There was a White House meeting in 2018 between Trump and the Nigerian president, and Trump expressed deep concern over the attacks. He said, "We have had a very serious problem with Christians who are being murdered in Nigeria. We are going to be working on that problem very, very hard because we can't allow that to happen." And obviously, I think that's a very good thing. Senator Ted Cruz called this out just a couple weeks ago. He said officials in Nigeria are ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians by Islamist jihadists. It's time to hold those responsible accountable. Nigeria Religious Freedom Accountability Act would target these officials with powerful sanctions and other tools. And so if we've learned anything in this episode, it's that evil actually exists. Evil really exists. Darkness exists. Not every religion is the same. Not every idea is the same. There is real objective morality out there, and ideas have consequences. Moral relativism has consequences. It's led to really bad foreign policy, domestic policy, and immigration policy. If you want to know more about the consequences of quote unquote compassionate progressive immigration policy, I really do encourage you to read my book. I'm not even just trying to sell it. You can borrow it from a friend. You can go to the library. It's there. And at the very least, read the immigration chapter of my book. It was one of the most gut-wrenching ones for me to write, and I think actually one of the most persuasive chapters because I became so passionate about it as I was researching and writing that chapter very unexpectedly. I learned a lot while writing it. So I know you will too by reading it. These people who are advocating for open borders and to stop deportations, you do not love your neighbor. You don't. You are actually putting them in harm's way because the consequences of bad immigration policy aren't affecting you. And unfortunately, we also see the consequence of the dereliction of duty of governments. When Nigeria doesn't put its people first and doesn't enact peace through strength, this is what you get. You get Christians being slaughtered. So let us remember our persecuted brothers and sisters. That is something that we are commanded to do, that as Christians, first and foremost, our allegiance is to the kingdom of heaven. First and foremost, our allegiance is to the body of Christ. And we have more in common eternally with our brothers and sisters in Christ in Nigeria than we have with our atheist neighbor who shares our political leanings, who shares our American culture, who looks like us, who sounds like us. We have more eternally and profoundly in common with Christians across the world who are being persecuted and slaughtered for their faith. So let us pray for them. Let us be with them. And we're not done talking about this. We're going to be talking to people who have firsthand knowledge of what's going on there. And we'll talk more about what we can do to help. But for now, pray. Pray without ceasing. And remember that the prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. Next sponsor for the day is Constitution Wealth. Constitution Wealth, the advisors many of you know and trust, is merging with WorthPoint Wealth Management. This is really good news, and here's why. You're getting the same trusted team and same values-aligned approach you've come to expect, now with even more resources and expertise behind them. WorthPoint manages over $1 billion in assets and shares Constitution Wealth's commitment to help you invest according to your principles, not Wall Street's agenda. Same mission, same values, bigger platform to serve you better. If you've been curious about aligning your investments with your conservative and Christian values, now is a great time to explore your options. Visit constitutionwealth.com/Allie for a free consultation. That's constitutionwealth.com/Allie. Constitution Wealth is a registered investment advisor. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Before considering their services, you should carefully review Constitution Wealth's disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand all material risks, conflict of interest, and fees. All investing involves risk, including the risk of loss. This is a paid endorsement, and I am not a client of the firm. Well, speaking of objective evil, I have to talk about this. You've probably heard about this, but the story about this attorney general candidate in the state of Virginia named Jay Jones. Democrats are facing criticism right now because they are not demanding that this guy pull out of the race because of texts that were revealed from 2022 in which he fantasized about killing his Republican colleague. He wrote a text, this guy named Jay Jones, in 2022 about putting 2 bullets into the head of then Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert, and also mentioned murdering Gilbert's children. So he said this, and we'll put up the screenshots of the text. 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head, and later added that Gilbert would receive both bullets every time in a hypothetical scenario. And this other person seems to be concerned about this. You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. So Jennifer Gilbert, I guess, is the wife of Todd Gilbert. And then she said this person who Jay Jones is texting with really just gets him to say, like, did you really mean that you wanted these people to die? And he says, I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. So again, these are not just like random people that I'm cherry picking here. This is someone who is running for a very high office, the law enforcement office in the state of Virginia, who says that he is out to protect your children. He believes that the children of people who disagree with him will or should die and should be murdered and should die bleeding in the arms of their parents. Virginia, I know you went blue for the election, which was very sad. And I know that you've been a swing state for a long time, but can you do better than this? Can you do better than this? And then Republicans have been put on the spot about these texts between young Republicans, I think in the state of New York. But it was leaked by Politico, reported on, and all of these Republican politicians and Republican commentators are being put on the spot to condemn these kids as if that is equivalent. It's not equivalent. Like, these were kids talking about stupid stuff. Some of the things were completely decontextualized and sarcastic. It's not the same at all, even if they weren't. You can say, obviously, yeah, they shouldn't be saying stuff like that. But that has no impact on anyone. That has no influence on anyone. We are talking about a Democrat politician who is wanting people to die, who was wanting children to be dead. Like, it's not even a comparison, the two things. And the fact that Republicans are speaking up and condemning the leaked private messages of a bunch of young Republicans, but you cannot get a Democrat to say that this guy should pull out of the race, that's crazy. Here's Thought 10.
Ms. Bamberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor nominee.
Ms. Earl Sayers.
And it's up to every person to make their own decision. I am running my race to serve Virginia, and that is what I intend to do.
Thank you, Ms. Bamberger. We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision. I am running for governor. I am accountable for the words that I say, for the acts that I take, for the policies that I have put out.
Weak. So weak. Also, I just want to say this to women. I know that when you're in a role of running for a political office, you want to seem strong and all of that. Never stand with your feet wider than your hips. Okay, that just looks silly. It looks like you're trying to project strength, but actually you came across as very weak because of the words that you said there, and you look silly. And by the way, I think that Winsome Sears is amazing, and I really hope that she wins this race. Come on, Virginia. You can do better than that. Even if you don't like Republicans, surely you can do better than that. But again, I just want you to know that within progressive ideology is violence, okay? It is at the heart of progressive ideology. It's not a bug. It is a feature of progressive ideology. I'm not saying that you as a progressive out there, that you are necessarily violent or that your friends are violent, but just look throughout human history. Look at the 20th century. Every left-wing movement, in particular, every collectivist totalitarian movement, whether it's fascist or whether it's communist or whether it's socialist, of course, is deadly. But if you look at the deadliest movements of the 20th century, socialism, communism, in China, Vietnam, North Korea, I mean, everywhere, that left-wing collectivism was established, millions and millions of people were slaughtered. Okay? It is a part of it. It's been a part of it from its beginnings. Marxism has always operated this way. So you can just leave. Like, you can just evaluate your worldview and decide, yeah, this is not something I want to be a part of. That would be the smart evaluation to make. Evil really does exist. And the kingdom of heaven is not Republican. It's not red or blue. That's not the argument. It's just to say that good and evil exists. And one party happens to celebrate evil more than the other. That's just a fact. All right. I do just want to close on this last thing. And that is Trump's moves on IVF. We've talked about this before and how I think he goes in the wrong direction when it comes to supporting IVF. And so I just want to talk about that. But let me tell you about our last sponsor first, and that is Preborn. And I'm so thankful for Preborn. I'm so thankful that they resource pro-life pregnancy centers across the country to make sure that women can get the sonograms that they need in order to see the life of their child on the ultrasound screen. And they can see that that is not just a clump of cells, but that is a person made in the image of God. And they are so much more likely to choose life, but they need to be told the truth. You know, the abortion lobby and Planned Parenthood, they're lying to these women and they're telling women that this doesn't really matter. You're just terminating a pregnancy. They use all kinds of euphemisms to try to mask what is really going on. And that is the intentional killing of a child, their child. So if you want women to know the truth, if you want them to be more likely to choose life, if you want them to get the resources they need to be able to survive and thrive, then you need to support Preborn. You can donate to Preborn. You can donate the cost of an ultrasound, which is $28. That could save a life, but donate whatever you can. Go to preborn.com/Allie. Make that donation today. Join with us in saving lives. That's preborn.com/Allie. This is according to the White House and the Associated Press. President Donald Trump announced initiatives to expand access to in vitro fertilization and reduce associated costs. Each cycle of IVF can cost $12,000 to $25,000, and often multiple cycles are required to achieve a pregnancy. Trump said, "We want to make it easier for all couples to have babies." Satnang.
In the Trump administration, we want to make it easier for all couples to have babies, raise children, and start the families they've always dreamed about. That's why today I'm pleased to announce that after extensive negotiations, EMD Serrano, the largest fertility drug manufacturer in the world, has agreed to provide massive discounts to all fertility drugs they sell in the United States, including the most popular drug of all, the IVF drug, Gonal-F. So it's Gonal-F.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just laughing at how he says things. Dr. Mehmet Oz, he is the head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. He said there's going to be a lot of Trump babies. I think that's a good thing. You do see Republican from Alabama, Katie Britt, sitting there behind him, and she has sponsored legislation in the past that is very pro-IVF. And Trump says that, you know, he's unaware of conservative religious objections to IVF, but IVF is inherently pro-life. And I'll just say it doesn't surprise me at all that Trump has this position. IVF is extremely popular, even among Republicans, and he represents the position that a lot of people have. I assume probably Senator Katie Britt has as well, that we should be wanting more babies. Obviously, we're facing a fertility crisis, and everyone who wants to have a baby should be able to have a baby, and they shouldn't be inhibited by the cost of IVF. But let me just explain something. The pro-life position is not just more babies. We want more babies that are conceived in loving marriages between a man and a woman. Being pro-life doesn't mean that we are pro every form of conception. Obviously, we can agree, right, that not every form of conception is moral and ethical. Even though the baby itself is a blessing, like we understand that conception via rape is not moral. Like we understand that that kind of conception or that the act of rape is not ethical. Like we believe that, right? We don't support that. Even if that results in a baby, we would not support that kind of conception. Now, people say, oh, are you comparing IVF and rape? Well, no. Listen to the logic. Listen to the principle of what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's the same thing. I am saying that we can agree that we should not support every act that may lead to conception. As Christians, obviously, we don't believe in premarital sex. We believe that that baby is a blessing should he or she be produced in that union, but we are still against that act that may lead to conception. So it's not, we want more babies at whatever the cost. There are moral limitations to that. There should be moral limitations to that. And not just because we're prudes, but because we care about the well-being of children. And there is a cost to IVF. In fact, most babies, most embryos that are made via IVF, the vast majority of those embryos will never be transferred and will never make it to a live birth. In fact, the IVF industry kills more babies every year than the abortion industry does. Because if we really believe in our pro-life ethics, that a life is a life no matter how small, that human life starts at conception, then how we treat those embryos that are created in a lab, that are frozen indefinitely, that are very often eugenically discarded because they're the wrong gender, or they have Down syndrome, or they have some other kind of disability, or they were just that unlucky extra guy that was created and their parents don't want them anymore. All of that really matters. It's not only about not killing a baby inside the womb. It's about not discarding and mistreating life that has been created. Those embryos are people made in the image of God. They are in a stage of life that all of us have been in, that every single human that exists has been in. And just because they are in a lab doesn't make them less alive and doesn't make them less valuable. And so, no, we are not pro-baby, whatever the cost. Remember, when technology takes us from what is natural to what is possible, we have to ask, but is that ethical? Is that moral? And especially as Christians, is that biblical? The moral cost, the ethical cost, the human cost to IVF outweighs the benefits. All people made through IVF are made in God's image and are just as valuable and worthy as you and me. Parents who have children via IVF love their children. I understand that. I know that. And yet we have to hold these two thoughts at the same time in our minds. And we started talking about IVF on this show far before it was a topic of conversation on the right. We started talking about it probably in 2019, I believe, was our first episode on it. It might have been early 2020. And since then, we've talked about it a lot. And I thank God that more and more people on the right talk about it now and what a problem ethically it is, and how it's bad for women too, by the way, terrible for women's health. And I think it is our job to try to move Trump on this and move Republicans on this, that this has to be a big deal for us if we're going to put children first, not just in the pro-life conversation, but also in the reproductive technology conversation. You can listen to my episodes with Katie Faust, also Jennifer Lahl. We've talked about this a lot over the years. And if I haven't convinced you in this short segment, hopefully one of the episodes over the years that I've done on this can, because we've talked about this very thoroughly. Again, good and evil really do exist. Right and wrong really do exist. And the Christian position on these things is unpopular, not just on the left, but sometimes on the right. But these little lives and honoring God's design, like these things they're worth it. All right, that's all we've got time for today. We will be back here on Wednesday.